What's going on, everybody? Today I have a very cool video for you. Today we're going to be doing a Guilty Gear Strive tier list, but not on the character strength. No. Instead, we're going to be doing a tier list based on how fun the characters are to play against. That being said, let's try to keep things civil. Let's talk about what makes characters fun or not fun to play against conceptually. Instead of just calling all Soul players gorillas, it's a little less productive. I think we could have a pretty cool conversation about this, and the things that I value are interactivity on defense and the neutral game in general, but I'm sure there are some exceptions to these rules. I do have some other strong opinions, so let's just get into it. So the first character I want to talk about is the character that I have the most time into in this game, and that is Goldlewis. And I'm using this to bring a point home, and I think Goldlewis is fun to play against because, once again, I value the neutral and I value interactivity on defense. And the point I want to drive home is because I understand Goldlewis and I know all of these RPS situations about him, when I play against Goldlewis, I still know these RPS situations. I know it hurts Goldlewis, so I know how to interact on defense, that I value a lot, and I know his neutral strategy. I know that he has to RPS between the JDs and the 684s, and even when I guess wrong, I still feel like I'm playing the game. And that's just the most I can ask for in a fighting game. It feels fun. That being said, I could completely understand how somebody could put Goldlewis down here. It makes a lot of sense. You know, some people will just lose to the JDs and the behemoth, and they don't really understand what to do, which is why I want to bring another point home, as the perception of a deserved or an undeserved victory often comes with our understanding of that character. And I think that would be the difference between like me and most players. Obviously, I have a really good understanding of Goldlewis, how to interact with him. Other people just don't, and I completely understand that because there are a lot of characters that I don't understand how to interact with, even though I have 1,000 hours into the game. And whether that be because it's particularly difficult with my character or I just don't know, that's the difference. Next, let's talk about Soul. Soul has been the subject of a lot of conversations in this game, particularly around his very quick, hard to punish DP, his 3-frame anti-air button that converts into massive damage, his just damage overall. That being said, once again, those parameters that I have nothing to do with that. All I really care about is interactivity on defense. Number one, okay, so Soul, I think, has a lot of ways to interact with him. You can 6P between his far slash. Yeah, it's mostly guesses, and if you guess wrong, he gets really high reward, but I still enjoy playing against that. And also, I think Soul's neutral is generally really fun to play against, especially with my character Goldlewis. So I think I'm probably going to put Soul in mostly fun. And the reason I pick mostly fun over fun is because fundamentally I hate dealing with DPs. And it makes me upset that some characters have like a hidden mind game that other characters just don't get on the ground. And yeah, you can quote me. It's kind of a scrub quote, I get it. But I can't always get a safe jump, and I can't always afford to give up my pressure. But yeah, that's just how DPs are. Next, we have Kai Kisuke, and that's going to bring up the conversation of honesty or dishonesty. Is that something that I value when I'm playing against characters? And the answer is no, not really. I don't really care if something is honest or dishonest, as long as there's some way for me to interact. But I guess that kind of brings me back to the definition of what I would call honest and dishonest. Is an honest thing something that you can interact with? Or is it something where it's like, well, you have good odds to survive this? It's difficult to say. But Kai Kisuke, obviously known as being one of the most honest characters in the game, lack of like degenerate tools besides like his big sweep that goes full screen and DP and whatever. But I think Kai probably goes to neutral. I think it's definitely, Kai is kind of an expressive character, and I think it's dependent on the kind of Kai that I play against, because often playing against like the space control-y type that are going to really zone me out isn't very fun. You guys are going to see later, I'm just not a fan of the zoning style of gameplay. But Kais also have the chance to like get a little brawly. Most likely they don't though, but unless they're really good at zoning, I'd say generally I'm having a good time. It's not fun to get run up grabbed though. That's evil. Next, we have Mei. This is another controversial figure in the Guilty Gear community. Everyone was hit up with the knowledge check when the game first came out. Totogeki. Fortunately, Goldlewis has really strong ways to follow up a blocked fast dolphin, and so I don't really have to play that mind game. Instead, I only really have to think about, are they going for slow or fast dolphin? Are they going for vertical dolphin? How are they going to follow up each of these things? Besides fast dolphin, I don't have to play that mind game again. So generally, I would put like Sol and Mei in the same category. Really nice buttons, really nice neutral, and really nice damage as well. But the difference is, for me, I already told you guys I'm biased against DPs, and I think Mei is actually really fun to play against, at least on my own character, on Goldlewis, right? I don't really understand the experience that well for other people not playing Goldlewis, but this matchup I find very fun. And you know, I also have a set against the Comeback Kid, if you guys want to watch that on my channel. That was also very pog. Next, we have Axel. I fundamentally just dislike the zoning game plan, and it's definitely because I'm a Goldlewis player. Okay, if I was obviously playing Chipp or Millia, I don't think I would mind it as much. But the idea of just pushing just for a chance to get to play the game just doesn't feel great. Even when I do get in on an Axel, often it feels like I just got lucky. I don't get that satisfaction of making a good read. Often it's like, okay, well, I ID'd and they did a 2P and I did it. And so I feel like when I'm playing against Axel, I don't feel like my wins are ever deserved. And I also have the perception that my opponent's wins aren't deserved because my character loses to like 1 or 2 buttons, right? I don't think there's a lot more to say about this. Axel just generally, you know, I'm not a fan of the zoning game plan and I'm playing a big body. What more is there to say? Next, let's talk about Chipp. That brings up another strong opinion of mine, and that is characters that are like fundamentally faster than the rest of the cast are really not fun to play against. I will admit that I'm playing Goldlewis, one of the slowest characters in the game, and so this is the effect is multiplied. But generally, when characters are really fast and you're playing that slower character, it's just really not fun to play against. I'm forced to play their game, and I really have that same undeserved feeling with Axel, in that I get that hit, cool, I counter hit Chipp, I kill them, great, or I don't kill them, and then I have to guess between DP and backdash on their knockdown, and block, I guess, the 1% of the time that they pick that. Or if I whiff, they get in for free, and they pretty much kill me. If you guys didn't know, Goldlewis has almost just no way to interact with Chipp on defense. This is just a terrible matchup. If Chipp ever gets you blocking, they can kind of just stagger you to death, and you're forced to challenge with big buttons because your 2P doesn't have a way to reach, and your 5P will go over everything that Chipp does. Next, we have Potemkin, another polarizing figure. I think most people don't enjoy playing against Potemkin because of his pretty annoying to deal with special moves such as Mega Fist and Hammerfall, especially Groot Impact. And I don't think people generally enjoy it knowing that they have to hold a real strike throw 50-50 from a Groot Impact, and either way they get hit, they're taking a lot of damage. So there's no like skew like, oh god, I can jump here and I take a little less damage. No, you're taking a lot of damage no matter what. It is very unfortunate. But Goldlewis has a pretty good time against Potemkin, and because of it, my perception of Potemkin is pretty good. I think Potemkin is fun to play against, and I know this is not going to be the case for a lot of you. I know a lot of you hate playing with Potemkin, but Goldlewis has 684H, which answers every single thing that Potemkin can do in neutral besides like far slash. And so the neutral I think is the most fun in the game for me. It's really fun. Playing against a good Potemkin player just feels great. If you guys haven't seen it, I do have a set with Snake Eyes on my channel. Maybe check that out. But also, I think the defense, I think it's fun when I pressure against Potemkins because they have this really cool mind game with Slide Head where they can like potentially slide head out of my pressure and armor me down. I think it's really funny when it happens. And when I'm guarding against Potemkin, I can generally afford to eat that damage a lot of the time. So I just sit there and block because most of the time Potemkins are going to frame trap you until you're conditioned to get grabbed. But if I just respect it for a little while and then jump, you know, oftentimes it works for me. And if I do get grabbed, I have a large health pool. Next, we have Millia. I think Millia is in the same boat as Chipp for a lot of the time, but I do have a big button called JS with Millia's name on it. So if they want to jump, my character actually has an answer for it. That being said, I understand the pain of getting vortexed by Millia's mix-ups, and I know people don't enjoy that, and I don't either, but I feel very satisfied when I block a Millia mix-up or when I throw their roll on reaction. And that's enough, I think, to make the matchup like neutral for me. It feels like I'm playing the game because it's not that Millia has a lot of unreactable mix-up. They have like a couple setups where they can do unreactable mix-up, and then everything else is like a mind game. Like, oh, am I gonna do the same mix-up from before? Am I gonna slightly change it up? Am I gonna do something entirely different? Am I just going to stagger you and then reset pressure? I think it's really fun to play against. And unlike Chipp, I actually have a way to interact with Millia, and that just feels really, really great. Next, we have Zato, and we can't talk about Zato without Eddie. When you're playing neutral against Zato, often it's a mind game between like throwing out preemptive buttons to destroy Eddie, worrying about Zato's own big buttons. If you ever destroy Eddie, you have to worry about Zato's great escape options. But if you ever get in, Zato has 0 defensive options. And that can feel very, very rewarding. And I think the neutral is fun. But the problem is Zato's offense. Zato is the definition of a one-player game. Once he gets in, you're kind of locked down, and you don't really know how long you're locked down unless you understand Eddie's stuff. Personally, I don't get chances to play against enough Zatos. A Zato's never sat down and explained to me, yo, this is what's going on with my character. This is how you can do stuff. Instead, I kind of just react to 5Ds. That's mostly what I'm doing against Zatos. It doesn't feel the most fun to play against, but overall, I would say Zato's just so much more fun to play against than Chipp and Axel. I don't know if he's as fun as Millia and Kai. You know, okay, so I was going to put him in mostly not fun just to fill out this gap. But I actually think it's a neutral thing. I think generally Zatos are fun to play against. They feel like a very well-balanced character. It's just not that fun to block against them though. Next we have Ramlethal, another controversial figure. I'd say she's pretty comparable to Zato, who we just went over, but her neutral is a lot more consistent in that, no, we don't have to manage your puppet. We're just using our big buttons. And yeah, she does play a one-player game, but only in the corner. She doesn't have like that insane like corner carry. Unless she has like meter, then that's exactly what she does. But yeah, the real problem with Ramlethal, I think, is 2 things. I don't mind the big buttons that much in neutral. Characters are going to have that. Ramlethal just excels at it, right? I think the big problem with Ramlethal is her ability to steamroll a game off of a mid-screen hit. Like, she can get a mid-screen hit, convert it to the corner, and a combo in super, and then you're locked down to go back into the corner, and then you have to eat like 4 reps of this like mix up while she continuously gets meter. It doesn't feel great. It doesn't feel deserved, even though it might be. And I think that feeling of deserved or undeserved for Ramlethal comes with a lack of knowledge or understanding of like how to like consistently get out of this character's pressure. I think I have a good grasp on dealing with like the level 1 Ramlethal stuff, but there are just so few good Ramlethals out there that I feel like I've never gotten to see like that level 2 Ramlethal. Like, I'm still playing against like the most basic Ramlethal day 1 stuff, and it's still difficult for me. I mean, partly that's because Goldlewis is a hard time against Ramlethal, but I think part of the perception of undeserved, like of like an undeserved loss or an undeserved win, is the perception of how easy that character is. And I think everyone agrees that Ramlethal is just like super easy, especially playing her at that level 1 stage. All that being said, I don't think that Ramlethal is as bad as a Chipp or an Axel. I don't have a problem with her archetype. I think she is too fast though. One more thing I want to say, I was just thinking about it. Ramlethal does not deserve to be as fast as she is. It's crazy how good of a grappler Ramlethal is from just full run in grab. It's crazy. But I'm not going to put her in not fun. I think she's just mostly not fun. Mostly because people don't bother to learn her past level 1, and that impedes on my experience to learn the character, and that makes me kind of upset. I also think that her mid-screen conversion rate to the corner, not that fun. Corner pressure, not that fun. But she lacks defensive options, so I'm having a great time when I knock her down, and those neutral hits do feel deserved because she has those really strong horizontal pokes, but you can always read those with like an IED in. Next, we have Leo. Leo's a character that I had a lot of difficulty dealing with when the game first came out. It also seemed like there were a lot more Leos. I wonder why there aren't as many Leos anymore. But his offense I perceived as just to be impossible to ever block. And his neutral was really, really annoying for me because I kept letting him get away with throwing out his H fireballs. But Leo's in a lot better place than I originally thought he was. I thought he was super, super degenerate, and though he can be, and I kind of dislike the mind game where he can like stay plus after that overhead, and then you just kind of have to continuously guess. But for the most part, I think Leo's really fun to play against because he's a lot of counterplay. Knowing that I can like throw those cross-ups, or knowing that I can like JD, well for Goldlewis it's JD, I can JD his fireballs and it's simultaneously also going to beat like his far slash. I feel like I have good counterplay, and I feel like there's a lot that I can do when I'm playing against Leo, but what's preventing him from being in fun tier is having that DP. I'm just not a fan of dealing with DPs ever in mind games. Fortunately, I have a pretty solid game plan to like keep Leo's vortex with safe jumps, and that all starts with him trying to cross me up and me throwing them and just stealing the game from there. So that feels pretty great. I don't think there's much else to say about the character. It's fairly straightforward. They have really good offense, but I can interact with it. They have really good neutral, but I can interact with it. Next we have Nagoriyuki, and Nago's a character that I fell in love with and then grew to hate. And I think I'm falling in love with him again. I really like this character actually. I think a lot of it might be biased because this was the first character I ever played in the game. I played a lot of this character, and even though it's Goldlewis's worst matchup right now, arguably, I don't think that it's felt as much as like by an Axel, because it's so much harder for a Nago to play in the way that just completely keeps Goldlewis out than it is for an Axel to press 5p, right? But the reason I don't mind playing against Nago is because although it's difficult, I feel like there is interactivity in his offense when like they're really up close to you getting aggressive. Obviously Goldlewis, his 2p is now a 5-framer, and that feels great when challenging after Beyblade. My JD is also great at jumping over 5H. The real problem button in the matchup is dealing with Nago 2H. And Nago 2H is a crazy button, and ultimately it's just not whiff punishable by Goldlewis. Where does Nago belong on the fun spectrum? I think I'm gonna put Nago in mostly fun because, I mean, I do just mostly have fun. Most Nagos don't zone me out with 2H, 5H, and because of that, I feel like I can interact. And even when they do zone me out with 2H, 5H, I can still interact with them. It's just that I have to severely slow down my gameplay, which generally is something that I don't like to do, but I can deal with it because I just love Nago as a character. That being said, I will add one caveat, and that caveat is laggy Nagos are the most annoying thing to deal with because of laggy Fukyo. Laggy Fukyo is so annoying, dude, and because of it, it gets me so heated when I have to play against a laggy Nagoriyuki. Next we have Giovanna, a character that's very often compared to the likes of Soul and Ramlethal, mostly in their ease of use, but also in the way that they just deal very high damage off the, you know, seemingly most innocent hits. Giovanna is the kind of character that scares me the most, and that is the kind of character that smothers me and forces me to guess. It feels like what Potemkin should feel like to Goldlewis, but he has great counterplay, but Goldlewis doesn't have great counterplay against Gia, and so it feels terrible. That being said, I don't think I could put Giovanna and Ramlethal in the same tier because Ramlethal has that like intuitive like uninteraction, whereas Giovanna, you know the interaction, you have to mash. The problem is you mash at the wrong time, you get counter hit, and that's it, right? But generally, I think Giovanna games feel rewarding. In my neutral, yes, I do have to slow down a lot, but because Giovanna is playing that really proactive role, I'm not really getting camped out. It's more just like I'm waiting on the Geo to approach, and I have to have a good read on that. And I think that can be kind of fun. It's a little different kind of play style. It's about I think it hits like the tail end of the amount of slow that I'm willing to play in a game before it starts to deteriorate the amount of fun that I'm having. And so I would say mostly it's neutral. It feels rewarding to win. It feels bad when I lose, but not because I don't feel like it's deserved. It just feels like, oh, well, I picked a bad spot to mash, and gotta hold that. Speaking of, you know, that the willingness to play slower, I think Anji's a character that forces me to play slower because dealing with the spins as Goldlewis is very haunting. I can't really throw out those big buttons or those big behemoths because they're gonna get spin on every single time. And I don't think it's enough to put Anji in mostly not fun, because there's a lot of ways to interact with him on defense. I think generally his defense is just weak, but Goldlewis also just has the option to press 5p after Fujin, and it covers 3 out of the 4 options. And yeah, there's not much more to say about the matchup. Makes me play slow. Not too happy about that, but I can interact with his defense, and that feels pretty great. And also, he has no defensive options, so I knock him down, and he's dead. Next, we have Ino, and though I expressed my concerns with like vortex loops such as like Millia, Ino is not really fast, and I think my main gripe with Millia is just how fast she is, not really the vortex. And I've recently come to know that there is a lot more counterplay than I thought against Ino, and because of I know that counterplay and I went through the effort of labbing, it feels a lot more rewarding to win that matchup. And I learned a real lesson in things become more fun when you have a greater understanding of what's going on in that game. And this literally went from being my most hated matchup to now a matchup that I have a lot of fun in, like most of the time. I don't think that I would put it in like major fun because there still are those games where I just get absolutely vortex out of the game. Like I never had a chance. And Ino is very, very good about baiting options out. But I'd say most of the time I'm having a lot of fun despite losing because I feel like I now know a way to interact with the character. And even in neutral, when I thought things were hopeless, I now know how to deal with HCL full screen as Goldlewis. I now know how to deal with stroke the big tree, but also dealing with her aerial approaches while accounting for that option. It just feels really, really great. Next we have Jacko. I'm not going to pretend like I have a strong opinion on Jacko. There are like 2 Jackos on the ladder and I've played each of them once and they're both from EU. So those games are not always the most fun to play. Generally, I would say that I don't have fun against Jacko, mostly because I don't get to play a lot of those games. And when I do, it's like a laggy game where I have to deal with zoning and I'm not too happy about it. But I will say that Jacko is a lot closer to like a Faust zoner than she is to an Axel zoner. Like, I feel like there is counterplay. I feel like there are ways that I can deal with her, not only in neutral, but also on offense. Like something I don't really like about Axel's design is like his just like, he has no incentive to play offense because of how weak his offense is. And Jacko doesn't have to play that way. If she gets those right conditions, like a minion behind the opponent, she will run in. And it does feel pretty good to have like a zoner run in the same way that like Faust would after a meteor. Even though I'm locked down, I still feel like I've made progress because the opponent's coming to me for the first time throughout the game, right? And because of this, I'm just going to put it neutral. Once again, I don't have the strongest opinion on it. Don't get to play a lot of them. That's pretty much all I have to say. And finally, we've got the new kid in town, Happy Chaos. Happy Chaos, once again, a way cooler designed zoner than Axel. I think I'm just going to put him in mostly fun right away. The reason I think Happy Chaos is cool because his zoning is dependent on his resources, and you can always look at his resources even while you're making space with like dash blocking, and you can like make informed decisions on whether or not you want to go in rather than like making reads, and it feels great. As well as Happy Chaos has a good offense, so if you are cursed, he is incentivized to run in and go take a turn. He also is really well designed in that although he has really strong zoning and strong pressure, his defense is just terrible. So if you get this guy to block, he doesn't feel great, but you feel amazing. And because of the interactivity all throughout the board, I think this character is really fun to play against so far. Now, there is a good chance that people optimize this character's zoning and offense game plans, and he goes to like down here. But at this moment in time, where we don't have like any super insane Happy Chaoses, I think he's fun to play. I would go far enough to say that he is mostly fun to play. And that's all I've got. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to leave a comment on what your guidelines are for what makes a fun or not fun matchup. Once again, I put a lot of emphasis on interaction and defense and general neutral feel and what I'm allowed to do. I'm wondering what your guidelines are, because I remember like when I played a bit of S Broly in Dragon Ball FighterZ, people didn't like the character because his combos were long. And so I feel like there's probably a lot of variation what people perceive to be fun or not fun. That being said, I don't want to get back into it. Thank you again for watching. Follow me on Twitch. I stream every single day. Join the community Discord. I accept VOD reviews and I hang out with the community and answer questions and whatnot. And follow me on Twitter if you have one of those as well. That's all I've got. Bye-bye.